All right, everyone, welcome to class today. I'm so excited to have you all here. Let's start with attendance. Let's see who's here, all right? You ready? All right, Jeff, you here?
Here.
Perfect. Now, Jennifer, you here?
Here.
Great. Now, Phyllis?
Here.
All right, got you down.
Hey, gorgeous, you bet your bottom dollar, winky face.
What's up, everybody? Now, this month it's gonna be fun. We're talking about dating, because dating, it can be kind of confusing, right? Like, I mean, everybody has their own idea about how to date and what you need to do and how many Instagram pictures you need to post together and how you can be hashtag couple goals. Really, it's like everyone around you in your schools are trying to live out their own little kind of rom-com Jim and Pam story, when in reality, they're living out their intense rom-drum. Like, I love you, but I hate you. I love you. Let's take a picture of each other throwing leaves into the air with the hashtag fall in love with you. And for most of us, like hopefully all of us, but we kind of get tired of seeing all of these overly dramatic date for 3 weeks and then break up tragically love stories. And so we come to church and we hope that the pastor will just give us some really easy rules to follow. Like, just do this, this, and this, and you'll have a perfect relationship. But unfortunately, that's just not how it works. Like, there is no such thing as this cookie cutter relationship, which is the beauty of relationships. Like, they're all different because we're all uniquely made. But the encouragement that I can give you is that foundationally, they require the same things if you're going to have a lasting relationship. And so those are the things that we're going to be looking at this month. Like, the Bible, it may not give us a checklist, but it does give us guidelines, and it walks us through the process of evaluation that can help us determine whether that person is someone that we should marry. Because that's the goal of dating, like marriage. It's not a status that you sit in like, ooh, I wonder if we'll make it to a year. Like, it's a process of evaluation with the goal of determining whether or not this is a person that you should marry. And the Bible, it has lots to say about that. It lays out some guidelines, and it describes in multiple places the characteristics that you should be looking for and not compromise on in the person that you're dating. And so let's dive right in. But first, I want to tell you a little bit of my story. I had my first girlfriend in 5th grade. And what that meant was that we passed notes to each other sometimes, and then I'd go play kickball with my friends. And you may be thinking, like, well, that's dumb, but here we are, come on, honey, 15 years later. No, I'm totally kidding. Like, we had a lovely few weeks together, but I guess it just didn't work out. And then all through middle school, it was kind of the same thing. I was always trying to have a girlfriend, because if you had a girlfriend, then you were super cool. So I had a lot of 2 to 4 week relationships and 1 month anniversaries, like the great milestone of middle school dating, like grandparents celebrating 50 years of marriage. That month signified all of the ups and downs that we had been through. And in 9th grade, I had my first kiss, which, why? And not much had changed for me through high school. Like, try to always have a girlfriend so that you can be cool. And I wasn't the only one who thought like this, which just made high school a madhouse of really awkward attempts at romance. Because, like, the movies, they tell us that if it's meant to be, it will be, and it will be easy, and you'll just know, and everyone will want their relationship to look like yours. And it's really just like this competition. Like, how can I get the cutest person to go out with me so that people will think I'm amazing, and then that person can work really hard to make me happy. And we're gonna work hard to be cuter than everyone else so that we can be the champion couple of the world forever, or for a few weeks until we break up, but either way. And in college, for me, I thought it would be different. Like, I had become a Christian in high school, and I hadn't really dated anyone since. And then I met this girl my freshman year and started dating her. But I found out later that just having the title of Christian doesn't mean that you can just do whatever you want and it will work out. I did what I thought I was supposed to do. Like, first meet a Christian, date them, be hashtag adorbs, and then after a while you get married. And so I proposed and we got engaged. And it was so romantic. Until a couple of months later when she broke up with me, and I realized that I had been living so much of my life in pursuit of another person to satisfy me. And that's what I want us to talk about today. And now maybe you're thinking like, wait a second, what? Like, Jeff, you're a wreck, that's your story? Like, what do you have to teach us about relationships? But let me tell you, my heart breaks every single time I see one of you, or anyone for that matter, go down the same path that I did. Like chasing after status and fulfillment through another person rather than relying on God. Like if I could go back and erase 100% of my dating history, I would do it in a heartbeat. Like I would give it all away if it meant that I could have learned this and put this into practice sooner. And so hear me and know that there is a better way to date and do relationships than what's going on in your schools and in the movies. In Matthew 22, Jesus tells us that the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, and mind, and that the second is like it, that we are to love our neighbors as ourselves. And you might be thinking, like, what the heck does this have to do with dating? Well, it's actually a lot more than you think. You see, in this conversation, Jesus said that loving God is the most important thing that you can do. But then he follows it up by explaining that loving God is connected to loving people. Like loving people is a natural response that flows out of our love for God. And I think it's safe to assume that Jesus was talking about all people, including the people that we choose to date and marry. And so before we go any further with this conversation about love and relationships with people, I think that we need to start where Jesus started, with the most important kind of relationship there is, and that starts with our love for and our relationship with the God who created us. Because if we don't first love God well, we'll never be able to love people or date them well. Like he must be our source of life so that we can be a source of life to the people we are in relationship with, whether that's friends, family, or someone that we date. And so as we continue, I want to point out 3 things for you to know about God, and they are this. The first thing is God exists in community. In Genesis 1:26, God describes creating humankind in our image and in our likeness. Like from the very beginning, we see God referring to himself in community as the Trinity, like Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Let us make mankind in our image. And because God is in community by his nature, and we are created in his image, the second thing to know is this. God made us to exist in community. Genesis 2:18 says, "It is not good for man to be alone, so I will make him a helper." You see, this desire within us to know and be known, to have relationship and to be in community, it's knit into our DNA. Like we're meant for community, especially when we're dating. Like we're not meant to just find our soulmate and never be seen again. Like don't date exclusively or in private so that nobody can see. Date in community so that the world can see and so that your friends and mentors can support you during this evaluation process. Like if you have something to hide, you're doing something wrong. Like we're meant to exist in community. And lastly, the third thing I want you to know is that God made us to exist in community with him. Jesus said in John 15:9, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love." And what he's saying is that we were created for relationship with God, and we're meant to remain in his love. I think sometimes we make the mistake of ignoring this part of our design. Like we try to fill our desires in our hearts with a relationship with a person rather than in our relationship with our Creator. But we are designed to crave relationships with other people. But a relationship with Jesus is the first and best way to satisfy your need for connection, to which our other relationships will then flow out of. That's why Jesus said to love God before he said to love others, because staying close to Jesus makes every relationship better. But now let me just pause for a second, because I think it's really easy to hear those things and then just immediately disregard them. Like, who cares? Like, I'm just going to try to find someone to go out with and then I'll figure all of this stuff out. But hear this. If you're hoping that a guy or girl will satisfy your loneliness, then you will always feel lonely. And if you're not at peace with God without a boyfriend or a girlfriend, then you will not be at peace with God if you have one. And if you want a great dating relationship, then you first got to be okay with not having one. Because if whether or not dating someone makes or breaks you as a person, then you're not a very stable person. And the most important thing for you to do in your life is to lean on the stability of Christ. Just embrace him and trust him, because when you have a source of life, love God, like you can be a source of life to the people around you, loving others. Satisfaction in life is not dependent on your relationship status. Like, let me say that again. Satisfaction in life is not dependent on your relationship status. Like, the more you live into that lie and put the weight of your life onto another person, the more frustrated you're going to be when they don't live up to your standards. And so today, to close our first talk in this series on relationships, I want to give you 3 questions to ask yourself and answer honestly. The first one is this the right time for me to date? Like, just be honest with yourself. Do you think that you're old enough? Do you think that it's the right time in your life? At this moment, do you believe that you can make wise dating decisions based on biblical values? Like, if I'm being honest, I don't think that most kids in middle or high school should be dating. Like, if dating is a process of evaluation with the goal of marriage, I don't think most students in American culture are ready for that at your age. Which is why the most productive thing that I think you can be doing as a student is to be growing in your relationship with God and with your friends. Which leads me to the second question, which says, do I even want to date? Like, the world we live in makes dating seem mandatory. Like, if you don't have a boyfriend or girlfriend, that you're missing something. But I'm here to tell you that that is not true. Like, you do not have to be with someone to be complete. Focus all of your energy on growing closer to God so that when you are ready, you'll be well prepared. Which brings us to the last question, which is this: how will I know when I'm ready? And this one, it's a little tougher to answer. Like, I'm not sure there's one answer to this, but here are a few thoughts. If you're okay with not dating, you might be ready to date. Or if you're clear about what boundaries you won't cross, you might be ready to date. And if you're prepared to handle a breakup, you might be ready to date. And if your parents or mentor or small group leader think that you're ready to date, you might be ready to date. But here's the most important one. If you already have a healthy and growing relationship with Jesus, and a boyfriend or girlfriend wouldn't tear you away from or affect that, you might be ready to date. But even so, let me just say, the goal of tonight isn't for me to say whether you should or shouldn't be dating, or are ready or not, or to give tips and tricks for dating well as a Christian. It's to remind you that your relationship with God is the most important thing in your life. And if you have to sacrifice that to be with someone, then it's not worth your time or effort. In fact, it's destructive. To you, to them, to your family and friends that get caught in the crossfire, it's destructive. So it's important to know that loving others well starts with loving God well. And if you have a source of life, you can be a source of life. And so in preparation for the month of these conversations about love and relationships, I want to challenge you to take a few steps closer to the God who created you and wants a relationship with you, because staying close to Jesus makes every relationship better.